Speaking of positive notes, the Kraken, be it preseason or not, are 4-0 in their exhibition matches so far. Belle, why don't we take a look at that past week in games?
Let's do it. September 26th was the first preseason game. That was a 3-0 win. Our player of the game there was Maddie Beniers with 1 goal, 1 point, a 2 plus minus 6 total shots. On the 27th, once again, they would win 3-0 against the Calgary Flames. Player of the game there is our goaltender Magnus Hellberg with 15 total saves, 100% save percentage, 15 even strength saves, and 1 power play save. On the 29th at the Vancouver Canucks, it was another win, a much tighter win, 4-3 in OT. Player of the game there is Will Borgen, 2 assists, 2 points, 3 plus minus, 5 total shots on goal. And then again against the Vancouver Canucks on October 1st was a much more secure win here, 4-0. Yanni Gord is our player of the game with 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points, 1 hit, and 1 block. And we have another player of the game for this one, Alex Wenberg, with 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points, and 2 takeaways. So, 4-0 in the preseason. That's not bad. I know some people don't care for preseason, but this is promising.
I think, we talked about with the preseason for the Seahawks, it was obviously there are some position battles that need to be talked about and a new regime of sorts with Russell Wilson gone. With this preseason, the importance is the fact that, last year watching training camp, it was much like guys were just kind of figuring things out, how to play with each other, how to really be together, and just didn't look like a team, really. They were less physical in camp, and it showed in games. In this preseason, they're much more physical. That was by design. And it's really interesting. You talk about, not caring for preseason. A lot of these teams are rolling out young guys to see how they do, rookies, guys with roster bubble kind of players. And the Kraken have been rolling out their veterans to an extent. You see the last game you mentioned, Yanni Gordon, Alex Wenberg, Maddie Beniers taking player of the game in that September 26th matchup. Magnus Hellberg, who has now unfortunately been claimed off of waivers by Ottawa, taking play of the game there. Just kind of a mix, trying to see what guys can give them. And inevitably, just like with the NFL, you're going to have to cut that roster down. Now, unlike the NFL, the Kraken can send people down to different levels, AHL, send them back to their development leagues and all that after they've drafted them. And so that's what a bunch of them have done, and we'll get to that in a minute here. But I think what's really important is that the chemistry is really being built on the power play, on the new penalty kill, adding the different guys like Burakovsky and Bjorkstrand and getting them really well integrated, seeing Maddie Beniers continue to play well, continue to impress, getting some solid minutes out of Shane Wright. It's been really interesting to see all of these different guys get their respective minutes, sort of show up in their own way, but all building towards a more complete Kraken team, looking better as a unit, looking better on the specialty teams units, and just showing a little bit more potential than what we saw throughout the entirety of last season. There were sparks last season. We look at some of the games. Seattle beat some really good teams last year. What was it with Florida, North Carolina, Colorado near the end of the year, and there were flashes of that, but we're seeing the power play has generated some chances. I know that was a big issue last year was the power play. They haven't actually cashed in on the power play yet this preseason, but they're showing better promise than they did last year. I know I'll hold some judgment there. Well, we want to see some improvement there. The penalty kill has been perfect. Seattle was relatively poor on the penalty kill last year. The goalkeeping has looked, outside of the overtime game against Vancouver, you see that 3 shutouts. So the goalkeeping's been really solid, whether that's goalkeeper coach Steve Briere or something else, or just Philip Grubauer locking back in, Hellberg having good games, Martin Jones playing really well as a signing while Chris Driedger returns from injury. I think it's all positive. I really think it's all positive. Obviously, I don't expect this to fully carry over into the regular season. I don't expect them to come out night one and just start this hot streak. But again, like I said in the offseason, with the additions of Burakovsky, Bjorkstrand, adding other guys like Kempney, Schultz, I fully expect you to win more games this year and potentially push for a playoff spot as opposed to sitting in the basement of the Pacific Division. I think overall, to take all of my words and compress them and compact them, I think these are good signs through 4 games. I know you got 2 left, but I think these are solid signs for your 2022 regular season.
Yeah, definitely brings excitement to what the season could look like. Let's move over to some team news here. On the 27th, forward Jacob Melanson was suspended. He was banned 2 games for an illegal hit to the head of Oilers forward James Hamblin. On the 28th, the team sends following players back to their junior clubs. Those consist of Jaeger Furcus, David Goyette, Kyle Jackson, Ty Nelson, Jacob Melanson, and Tucker Robertson. So any of those that surprised you there on that list?
No, not really. Furcus and Nelson will be with the Kraken at some point in their careers, I'm sure within the next year or two. Furcus is really exciting. Hoping to speak with him at some point on an interview. Nelson's been a lot of fun to be around. You know, their personalities are great, but also their talent is definitely there. Furcus was a 2nd-round pick. I fully expect him to be a contributor, I'd say next year or the year after that. Nelson, but all of these guys definitely needed work. You know, they're still with their junior clubs. They still got some things to work on. Keep an eye on them for sure. But it was good to get them around the team, help them be involved, see what it's like. But I Furcus and Nelson, I fully expect to see them down the line with the Kraken.
Okay. We move on to some news from September 30th here. Chris Driedger launches Driedger's Keepers. Seattle goaltender Chris Driedger created the program because Chris saw firsthand how much money his parents spent on hockey equipment. He noticed that young players and their parents were shying away from trying out the goalie positions due to the cost of the gear that kids often grew out of quickly. So let me backtrack here. In fact, when Chris was a youth hockey player, he benefited from a similar program at his local ice rink and wanted to provide the same opportunity to youth here in Seattle. So amazing. That sounds like it'll help, hopefully, a community of children that would like to, give it a shot. And the following players have been before I move on here, anything that you'd like to say about the Driedger's Keepers?
Chris Driedger is just a solid dude. I mean, just to see this sort of thing is really exciting. Knowing that, in a community that's really not a hockey town. I mean, not, let me backtrack. Don't hold that against me. It's not something where kids around here grow up playing football, playing soccer, playing baseball, playing basketball. They don't grow up playing hockey, right? That's what I mean by that. Is that that's not something that's happening yet, and it's starting. It's in the recent years, yes. I apologize for saying that at the top of my ramble there. That's not what I meant. But this is good to see. I know, keeper equipment is expensive. It's really expensive, and let alone normal hockey equipment. So to see that he's doing this is awesome. I'm sure it's tough for him to not be with the team right now due to his injury. Right. But to see him involved still is really cool. To see him doing things like this with his time is awesome to see in the community. So really great to see that. Chris is just a solid dude. He's just
So like you said, it's great that he's helping the community, and it's something that he experienced himself, and so he's aiming to fix that. So it's like you said, awesome to see. We'll move on to some more news from September 30th here. The following players have been reassigned to Coachella Valley's training camp: David Cotton, Callum Booth, Tristan Mullen, and Eddie Wichow. On October 1st, more exciting news here. The team unveils the official mascot, Buoy the Sea Troll. A 6-foot-tall blue sea troll living in the caverns of Climate Pledge Arena and inspired by the Fremont Troll. Buoy's favorite meal is shark with maple leaf seasoning. Buoy loves music. Legend has it Buoy once jammed with mud honey at the Crocodile. Folks are drawn to Buoy's many talents, high energy, and fun-loving spirit. Odds are you'll see Buoy out and about, especially near the Fremont Troll, Buoy's uncle. Buoy's a great admirer of the Kraken and pays tribute to the deep sea creature with unique touch of magic in his lovely hockey hair flow. I was a little bit surprised, but not so much. I had actually seen a teaser on Twitter of this is the Kraken's new mascot, and it was our Fremont Troll. So I had a little bit of I felt a sneak peek there. But any thoughts on the mascot or what you might or might not change?
Uh, the point was made, and I think it's a really good one, that at the end of the day, the mascot and the point of the mascot is essentially for the kids. It's for a family aspect. I mean, it's for, events and to get the kids involved in something they might not typically get involved in. I don't know how many
Sure.
4-year-olds are going to just jump into hockey on their own volition. Right. So on that aspect, it makes sense. But when I first saw it, I was like, what are we doing? What is that?
Yeah.
Because I had heard some of my friends had come up with ideas like, it's the Weedle on the Needle. It's a deep sea diver. It's an actual Kraken. The other point was made, how many times is the mascot actually related to what the name of the team is? I was like, there are a good amount of examples, but also not. So I'm mixed on it, I'll admit, but at the end of the day, yeah, I'm sure it's mostly for the kids. So there is that, So I maybe over time it'll grow on me, but I'll reserve my judgment on Buoy for the time being. But I mean, I guess the word I will use is intrigued.
Yeah, sure. I definitely am a fan of the blue hair, so that's where I'm staying. On October 2nd, the following players have been reassigned to Coachella Valley's training camp: Luke Henman, Ty Carti, Bill Petman, Petro Sapala, Matt Tennyson, Jimmy Schultz. And the following players have been placed on waivers for the purpose assignment to Coachella's camp: Jesper Froden, Cameron Hughes, Coland, Max McCormick, Gustav Olofsson, Austin Pagonski, Andrew Poturalski, Brogan Rafferty, Carson Tornsky, Magnus Helberg.
Wow,
So
you got through that pretty well.
I tried to just do my best here. So, like we've said before, hockey names are tough, and this definitely proved it.
And so
um,
I want to stop you before we go
yeah,
because
yeah.
this happened while we were going over the Mariners. So as I mentioned, Helberg was the only one that was claimed off of waivers. He was claimed off of waivers by Ottawa, as Cam Talbot, that was signed by Ottawa in the offseason, is out 7 weeks with an upper body injury. So I'm sure Helberg is going to take a part in that goalie tandem in Ottawa. But everybody else on that list clears waivers and will now head to Coachella Valley. Cole Lind, someone I've been actually interviewed, was expected to be claimed off of rosters. He's got some good talent, but he gets to go to Coachella Valley and we get to keep him in the organization. So that's exciting.
Mhm.
And then one more thing before we get to league news that also broke: the Kraken have officially signed Daniel Sprong from a professional tryout to a 1-year, 2-way contract. So Spronger, the Flying Dutchman, will stay in Seattle for this next year. His heavy shot will remain in Seattle, and he will continue to battle in a crowded forward group. So that was one of the ones I was really interested to see. But, with the ability to send guys like Lynn down to Coachella Valley, Spronger gets to stay. So those are two things that we're breaking while we're in the middle of the show. So I will
Awesome.
let you continue.
Yeah, perfect. We'll move on to the league news. On the 27th, the NHL set to increase its salary cap. The league will reportedly see a significant rise in the salary cap over the next 3 seasons. In 2022, we'll see an increase of 82.5 million, 23-20 through 23, 83.5 million, and a 4 million increase expected in 24-25 and 25-26. So we shift back to the record for our Kraken here. As we've mentioned, they are undefeated 4-0 in the preseason. Looking ahead, they have a matchup against the Calgary Flames at 6 p.m. on October 3rd. On October 7th, at the Edmonton Oilers, again, a